When ready, right?
How are you feeling the day after?
Oh, yeah, it's still a bit frustrating, but that's rugby, isn't it? You know, it's a game we could have won, and if we'd taken the opportunities we created, would have been a game we would have won. And you know, it was a average way for it to finish as well. But you know, that's sport sometimes. So we've just got to accept that and move on and get better at what we're trying to do, and then sit back and reflect on what's been really positive for us as we've introduced some, you know, 2 20-year-olds, another couple of young backs, and yeah, I thought we played some positive rugby last night as well. So you know, that was our problem in the first 2 tests. We didn't play enough rugby, and last night we did. So we've got some good learnings out of it, and from a long-term perspective, you know, it's been a good series for us because it's put us under a bit of pressure, some adversity, and we've got to deal with that mentally and as a group. So there's plenty of positives to come out of it.
How frustrating was it in the second and third games with some of the inconsistent officiating?
Look, I've always said the game's extremely difficult to referee. I mean, if you take Nigel Owen out, they're supposedly the 3 best referees in the game at the moment, and there's always going to be a human error. It doesn't matter who it is, but what we've got to do is help them, not bag them. We've got to try and find a way of helping them have less moments like we probably did over throughout the series, and you know, that's a world rugby thing. That they lead this game and they run this game, and with the help of people within that, you know, we've got to help the referees so it becomes easier and more simple for them to ref the game. It's a really complicated game, and you know, like all the sections that were quoted last night. Everyone obviously thinks I'm struggling with this answer. They're all a friend. He won't help you. He won't answer it. So you know, like with all those sections, and there's one of the problems. You know, do I go there? Do I go there? Do I go there? Rather than is it or isn't it? And if it is, fine. If it isn't, it isn't. And it's
sorry.
Have you just got that, Kevin?
No, the sound thing isn't working.
if it is, because I can hear it.
I think it is, yeah.
So that's where we've got to go. Like, and when we have things that have got multiple interpretations, then we're always going to get human error. So there's no point us as a team being frustrated. You know, I said last night, as young people, we were always taught to respect the referee and you know, play to what he sees, and that's what we'll do. You know, we have plenty of chances to win the game ourselves. So.
Have you had a chance to talk to Romain?
No.
Not at all.
I went into the shed after the game and said thanks for the game, which I think was proper. Like the 3 of them had worked through, or 4 of them actually, with George, had done all 3 test matches, and you know, it was tough going for them too. So we wouldn't have a game without them.
Steve, that's one of the things though, is that this decision, they had the screens, George had his screens, the referees were looking up there was 4 international referees making that particular call. And there's a reasonable belief that the call ultimately was got wrong. Is there a major concern considering they had time, resource and technology at their disposal and still didn't get it right?
Yeah, but sometimes you're right, but you know, the more time we have to think about something and we overthink it, and I think in this case that's what happened. Like if you look at Romain's instincts, were it was a penalty, and straight away you see the young fellow that caught the ball. He knew, I shouldn't be catching this, so he chucked it away. And then they wanted to check if we hadn't touched it, because a la Scotland versus Australia in the World Cup. And when it came back, we hadn't. Then all of a sudden, all these other opportunities were looked at, and And I think they've just overthought it. If he'd trusted his instincts and gone with them, then he would have made the right decision. Because if he had felt like it was accidental, play on and LB scores under the post, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But he didn't, and then he got caught up in overthinking it, and they've made a mistake. And I'll bet you he's not feeling good about that. He's a good man, Roman, and he hasn't done it deliberately. And it's no different when Craig, he made his mistake in the World Cup, and you just got to accept it. As much as it can be frustrating and annoying and all those things, it's just part of sport. And you think in 5 years' time, do you think anyone's going to remember that when they think about this series that it was drawn on something like that? No, they'll just say it was a drawn series, and by then we'll have all moved on.
Steve, do you think ultimately that this series, when you look back, there's been pressure moments where the All Blacks, the Lions, about their pushes if you want, but ultimately it comes down to the fact that there was plenty of opportunity last night for your team to win that game. And for one of the rare times, the base skill execution simply wasn't up to the standards that you had. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, it's pretty fair, I'd say. Like, we're disappointed because we didn't take the opportunities. And we're disappointed we didn't play, even though we had 14 men in the second test, we didn't play enough, and a lot of that's got to be contributed to the Lions' ability to defend the way they do, and that's why it was good for us. Like, we had to work our way through that, and we started to show signs of that last night. So the more we're going to get more of it. Like, everyone that's watched the games will say, well, that's how you play right on the edge and to the offside line and get up there fast, and I won't use that word, but that'll force us to have to get better at it, and we weren't as good at it as we would like to have thought. You see the Hurricanes using line speed, and the Highlanders using line speed, and Crusaders now, so it's starting to come into our game down in the Southern Hemisphere. Line speed's becoming more and more prevalent, and as it does, we'll get better and better at coping with it. We've just taken a couple of metres and a couple of times last night we'd have scored tries. So we've started to unlock Pandora's box. We just didn't get to eat the chocolates.
Steve, did goal kicking come back to haunt you in these last two tests?
Oh, well, you can sit there and say that, but when you look at the stats going into the test match, Farrell was 71 and Bodie was 81. And I think if you go back and see what I said, like, stats mean nothing. It's on the day, you've got to kick the goals. And Bodie missed a couple, and he got all of his in this test match. So, it would have been nice if we kicked them. But it changes the nature of the game too if you do. So you don't know what's going to happen after if you've actually kicked them. So he kicks some really good goals too. And he's working through a technical issue that he knows he's got. We know he's got it, but he's getting better and better with it. So his kicking ratio was 81 up until last night. So can't complain too much about that. It's reasonably high. But again, if we sit there and say, well, is that the reason we lost? It's an obvious thing to pinpoint, but again, we didn't take the opportunities. Wyatt Crockett's feeling bad about himself because he got held in a ruck, and then their halfback threw the ball at him when he had really no influence on what the halfback could have passed it, but the law says if he passes it into him, it's a penalty. So you could say that was cynical, but it's there, and that's the issue we've got at the moment. We've got to make it pretty clear cut that we don't reward that stuff. I don't think goal kicking is the only reason why we drew the series.
Was it hard not to get frustrated during the series? You mentioned Wyatt and Charlie's penalty at the end in Wellington, and how do you fend off those frustrations?
Well, just keep it real. It's a reality, isn't it? Are you allowed to tackle someone who's jumping in the air. No. When they wrote that law, do you think that was what they were thinking about? Probably not. So again, we need World Rugby to look at that, because otherwise the cynical people out there, they'll start jumping in the air. Every time they want a penalty, you'll jump in the air, and you don't want, the game doesn't need that.
So you start looking ahead now to the Rugby Championship. You've got a tight head and a first five will be departing overseas. Is that going to be the main area that you're keeping an eye on as you start thinking about the formulation of your squad, or are there other areas you want to develop?
Well, we're pretty comfortable with the replacements. Like Liam has been with us for a wee while now, and he's had enough rugby to really come in and stamp his authority on the game. So looking forward to seeing how he goes. And then Offa's been working really hard with us for 3 or 4 years without getting a lot of opportunities, but we see him in our own live scrummaging, and he's also going to get an opportunity, and I think he'll surprise a lot of people just how well he can do the job we're going to ask him to do. So that's exciting in a number of ways. Then we've got the continued growth of the people that we have introduced. We can only take 33, so there's going to be some quality people who miss out. But we still need to continue to grow those guys when they're not with us.
Will you continue to go with 5 prop forwards and have Offa covering both sides, or do you consider expanding out and going with 6 and taking 3 specials?
No, we might stay with, well, not might, we will stay with 5.
Steve, is there a concern that this series might have taken a lot out of the players? Given that the other teams have been 2 weeks off and a bit of time to prepare?
I don't think you get any better preparation than playing, one of the best teams that you could possibly play. Like, we've just played a team that's full of internationals from 4 countries who are currently all rated, I think, at least 5 or above. It might be 6 and above, not sure. We're a Wales ranked at the moment. 6, so 6 and above. So they've picked the best players out of those 4 nations, and what great preparation it's been.
But what about the physical top on your guys?
Well, again, I don't think it's that physical that we can't recover from it. Like, I think our guys have pulled up this morning. There's no one's injured. Everyone's bouncing around, disappointed, but they're in good nick, and that's a tribute to Gilly and Pete and Doc and what they've been in here and what they've been doing in their franchises. So they'll go back. I'm sure the Hurricanes and the Crusaders are really looking forward to belting each other. But the smart play would be to have a look at who we need to play and who we don't need to play from the Super Rugby Championship. That's where I think a mental break will be just as important as a physical one. So the Crusaders, for example, they're already qualified, so they've got a little bit of room to move with. The Hurricanes probably don't have as much, so we'll wait and see what they do. It'll be interesting.
Steve, did you share that bit with Warren last night?
Yeah, no, we had a beer and had a yarn and a laugh and a giggle and all the things you do when like it's only sport, and his and my relationship's fine. It hasn't. Well, we're not close buddies, only because I don't really know him and he doesn't really know me. But what we do know of each other, there's a mutual respect there, and when you play a 3-match series, you're always going to have a yarn. So we caught up. And
has your perception of the Lions and those players in those 4 countries changed or shifted at all over the course of the series?
No, I said before they came out here, they're probably the best Lions team to come here in a long time, and that hasn't changed. I still think they're one of the best Lions teams to come out here. Some good players.
Steve, the critical masses are suggesting that the All Blacks have taken bits I've heard on talkback this morning, pretty vociferous that this has been a bit of a step backwards for the All Blacks. Is that not taking into account the strength of the opposition that you're facing?
Oh, look, there's always going to be people react in that way because we're used to winning everything. And, that in itself is probably one of the reasons why this has been a great series. People get a wee sense of reality. There's other teams out there that can play rugby, especially when you combine 4 of them into one. So it's pretty disrespectful if you think that just because we've drawn the series that we've gone backwards. No Ben Smith, no Dane Coles, 2 of the best players in the world, no Ryan Crotty, no Sonny Bill Williams, no Waisaki, no Rico Iwani. Neither one of those 2 were considered for selection. So there's a lot of people that weren't there in the third test. Did we play well? Yeah, we played well enough to win the thing. We just didn't win it. We drew it. And people are always going to have an opinion about where we're at. And I heard a lot of talk about from people that should know better, really, about Geordie Barrett not being up to it. How did he go? Not too bad, was he? Yeah. So people just got to stay calm and trust that we do know a little bit about what we're doing. And there's never going to be plain sailing. There's always going to be a road bump, and it's how we deal with the road bump when it comes. That's important. And you actually, as a coach, you want a few road bumps, because somewhere along the line they're going to hit you, and if you haven't had them, then you don't know how to deal with them. So we've had a bit of a road bump against a team that was full of quality athletes. They were well coached right across the board by all their coaches. And we've come out and drawn the series with them. So you can either look at it as saying, well, actually we did all right, didn't do what we wanted to do, but we didn't lose the thing either. So it is what it is, and we have to deal with that.
Last question of the night.
You can ask them more. There's no rush. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, good stuff. Park up.
Any other did you have any injuries come out of last night?
Everyone's fine.
What's the time frame then for the returns of Ben Smith and Dane Coles?
Well, Ben Smith's probably going to play straight away, I'd suggest. Dane Coles, I don't think he'll make their quarter-final, but if they make the semi-finals, I think he'd be right. Just from a conditioning point of view, he had so much time off, and totally different to having that time off when you're not injured, like at the end of the year, because you're still active and doing stuff. Where he had a whole period there, 3 or 4 months, where he just didn't do anything. So we've got to bring him back and graduate him back into training, full contact, etc., etc. And so they've just got to be sensible about that.
You had quite a long time there where there was obviously a little bit of concern as to what the issue was. Now the issue has been sorted. How much is it more just about getting him mentally right as well as the physical aspect?
Well, mentally, he's a tough kid, so he'd play tomorrow if you let him, but that's not the sensible thing to do. He's totally unconditioned to play rugby, so we've got to recondition him. And when we've had 2 meetings. The second one was a phone call, conference call with the Hurricanes. They're well aware of what we've been doing and where we need to go, and between the 2 operations, there's a good plan in place at Coles.
Steve, a bit was made during the series, the fact that the same officials were rotated during the 3 games. Is that something that needs to continue, or because in certain sections last night of the game it didn't appear as though they were getting the picture of the previous 2 games?
Well, I quite like the idea of the team of 4, because you've got the same guy doing the TMO stuff too, but
Were things dawning on them by game 3?
You saw all the same games as I did, so I just think I think they felt better. They had more trust with each other, so that's a positive.
Well, like the same ref for all 3 tests.
Yeah, well, that's another option. I mean, I'd have been happy if Nigel Owen, we get hell bent on having to have neutral referees. But I think the best referee is the best referee, and he's going to go out and adjudicate what he sees and what he doesn't see, and then support him with the next 2 best. So what I don't think we should do, though, is make this series about the referees. I think that's a separate issue. It's an issue that World Rugby have got to take ownership of and try and fix it. make it easier for them. This series is about two very good rugby teams coming together and challenging each other in different ways and with different styles, and it came out a draw. So it's a shame we don't have another one next week.
Steve, lots been talked about who's going to replace you when you eventually decide to leave this job. Warren has been talked about, Eve Foster, we're worried about Joe in Ireland. What's your thoughts on that process?
Well, I don't have any thoughts on it because I'm not going to be sitting on the committee that picks it. So, look, all I know is that there's a massive responsibility that comes with being the All Black coach, and I know that when the union in 2007, after we dropped out of the quarter final, made the decision to keep Graham, Wayne and myself, that continuity and the fact that we had to take responsibility for that failure made a massive difference to what happened after that. So continuity is a good thing, and otherwise you end up chucking everything out. And the formula we've got now is not perfect, but it's pretty good. It's reasonably successful, and having people coming in cold and not understanding that makes it harder. It doesn't mean to say that's not right, but I've got complete faith in whoever sits on the panel at the time will make the right decision for New Zealand rugby, because that they've been good at it in the past and they'll continue to be good at it. So we're very fortunate. We've got a lot of good coaches now coaching throughout the world. I think if you look at Northern Hemisphere rugby, take Eddie out, who's also a Southern Hemisphere coach. You've got Vern, just finished at Scotland. You've got Joe and Warren doing what they're doing. So out of the 4 home nations top teams, we've got 3 New Zealanders, 1 Australian, and it's not surprising that, or it's not a coincidence, I should say, that those teams have gone further up the rankings. And what that means is Northern Hemisphere people will be looking for more Southern Hemisphere coaches, and it just means we have to develop more down here. And to answer your question, we've got plenty of good candidates, so just got to trust the system they pick the right one.
Steve, it's so bad for 3 games in a row against the same opposition. A lot of talk about how difficult it is for the players. What about as a coaching staff to constantly come up with new stuff week on week?
Well, it's not so much coming up with new stuff, it's about trying to outguess each other. And the Lions have a particular style of how they want to defend, as do we, and so then it's about understanding how you can break that down. And we didn't get to do it in the second test, I think, because we lost Sonny and we went in our shells a wee bit because of that. But I thought we started to look reasonably good last night. And I'm not sure what the territory stat was, but I think we had a lot of, at one point there we'd been in the 22 for 5 minutes and they've been in ours 1. So when you get that sort of dominance, you've got to score points, and we didn't. And again, that's a credit to them, but it's also something that we've got to look at and sharpen up on.
No, one, couple more.
Yeah.
We done?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Dave.
Safe travels.
Travis,